Hi everybody, this is Lenny Murphy and I'm here with another in our interview series today with two very special guests, and I'm going to actually let them introduce themselves. So first, Brian Elliott of Periscope by McKinsey. Brian?
Hi there. Thanks for having us today. I'm Brian Elliott. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Periscope, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of McKinsey & Company, and a partner in the firm more broadly.
Brian. And Oliver Ehrlich, did I get that correct that time, Oliver?
That's pretty good, yes. Hey there, yeah, exactly. Thanks for having us. I'm Oliver Ehrlich, partner with McKinsey here in Germany in the Düsseldorf office, and in a, if you like, second role, also a global leader of our Insight Solution Suite, which is part of the Marketing and Sales Ventures and Periscope Suite Brian is heading.
Great. So for those that are listening or watching, the McKinsey had reached out a few weeks ago through their marketing team to engage with Green Book, and we decided it would be a really interesting thing to have this conversation so the rest of the industry could get a sense of exactly what's happening with Periscope by McKinsey. You know, for background, obviously you've been around since I think 2012 was when the offering was first established, but we haven't heard much about you outside, you know, in the rest of the industry, and that's beginning to change. Where you're going to be at IAX Europe here in another week or so, at least some of you are. Hopefully at other events throughout the year, and wanting to engage more with the industry as a whole, with your very unique perspective and offerings that Periscope brings to the table. So there's the context. So this is the chance where you get to plug. So Brian, we were chatting before, and you gave a really great summation of kind of the scope of tools and resources that's kind of driving the Periscope offering. Maybe you could echo that again so the rest of everybody has a sense of exactly what you're doing.
Sure, and thanks for asking. Periscope has overall 7 suites of support that we do for marketing and sales more broadly. And obviously the piece that we're talking about at IEX is our Insight Solution Suite, and that's where we'll focus most of the conversation. But we actually started back in 2012 with the mission of sustaining the insights into the everyday way of working of our clients. And that has meant over time that we've had to put together a suite of capabilities. There's our Insight Solutions, there's our marketing solutions, like marketing return on investment. We have customer experience solutions, which is sort of the next generation of client lifecycle management. Our category solutions for merchandising and assortment, understanding shopper behavior and how that might shift your category strategy in more consumer-facing industries. Pricing, promotions, and performance management. And then lastly, our sales solutions, which help folks that have sales forces out there take the insights into action also at the point of their customer conversation.
Right. Now, what was interesting in during our conversation and some of the briefing documents you shared with me was also the what you characterize as agile research. And we talked a little bit about automation and some of the technology that that undergirds that. And I think, Oliver, you actually may be able to speak to that a little bit more. So can you talk more of where the idea of not just high-end strategic research, which is what most people would think of when you think McKinsey, but also, you know, kind of the emerging factors that are impacting the rest of the industry that are focused on cheaper, faster, better, you know, great real-time solutions that are constantly feeding data in, and how that fits into the model. So, Oliver, you want to chat about that a little bit?
Absolutely, and I think you already made, I think, the key point, Lenny. I think it doesn't contradict at all to, let's say, have agile insights combined with highly strategic topics that we are tackling. Because I think the reality out there is, given all the dynamics and trends that our clients are facing, from like digitization, of course, maybe as one of the most prominent ones, the ability to be able to react quick to new, let's say, dynamics in the market, be it competitors or changing customer dynamics. It all calls for, of course, being able to see quickly what's happening out there, right? And using it along, if you like, the whole value chain of decisions you need to do, from what would be the next product and services I need to offer, or does this specific concept work well or it doesn't, right? And so I think this whole building this muscle of being able to do that quickly, not necessarily by a 3-month market research effort, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, but to know in 2 days from now, hey, 200 customers have seen or have answered a question to me, or have seen a prototype of something, and I immediately can work with that in an agile way to further improve it. I think that's just a huge demand and also a necessity that clients are currently facing, and where they then ultimately also reach out to us. If we then, for example, support them in their digital transformation, it just comes into play that you need, or within those kind of strategic projects and considerations, always these kind of little data points, right, to proceed. And I think there we just said we also have this capacity and capability to then also, as a bit of a agnostic partner, help them find the right tools and insights to quickly and agile provide these kind of outside-in data points into this kind of decision making. I think that's where the whole agile insights thought from us comes in, and where it doesn't contradict at all our usual work, what we are stand for.
That's a good segue then, in thinking the comparison, because obviously we're going to compare you to the rest of the industry. So one of the examples would be that traditionally most market research companies, and it's changing some, but want to own the entire value chain, where you're very open to partnerships, and being part of a broadening ecosystem, focus more on delivering what the client needs versus you owning what the client needs. So you can talk a little bit about even maybe some examples of partnerships you can divulge. Maybe there's some that you can, but some examples of how you're doing that very practically today. And either one. We'll pick on you now, Brian, since we'll just go back and forth.
Okay, that's great. I think maybe the key thing is to understand the philosophy of how we enter the market, and then within that we'll give examples. We're trying to shape the industry to a place where insight sits at the heart of every decision that's made in a company. That's the future state. And there's multiple ways to get that done. There's continuous data flow that you can mine with machines and human beings to build better models that can be embedded directly in the workflow of the decision support, and that makes the clients get the impact and they get it faster and it's sustained. That's important when you're coming from McKinsey's point of view, because the objective is to increase the impact for our clients and for them to sustain that capability. But if we're really going to do that at scale, everything has to be better, faster, and cheaper. And we have to take the interaction barriers out of that chain to impact. That's where, yes, we have software solutions that help support that workflow and the decision rights. Of course, we have insights models. Those insights models need to be continuously fed with the right insights, either through continuous data streams or by making primary research into something that's very close to a continuous data stream. So if you have an agile research capability like Oliver was just describing, when it comes that quickly and that easily, you can continually get data points. And then that opens up whole new possibilities of the kinds of insights about your customer behavior that you can get, whether you're in B2B or in B2C industries. Hearing the voice of that customer in your everyday decisions is at the core. Now, to do that, our objective is to drive the impact. We don't need to own it. We need to make sure that the total chain works, and we need to take those interaction barriers out. So as we've gone up the chain into insights, we've done that in a large part through partnerships and making it seamless data flow and seamless ability to specify what needs to happen, in a standard way so that it can come through. We've taken our intellectual property, we've codified that and passed it over to others and through on their platforms. We've had others that have shared in reverse the other way with us. We've also made 4 acquisitions along the way of constructing our capabilities as well, and we'll continue to partner that way, both with small, innovative startups. Like one of our partnerships is with a small company called Ehrlich that does emotional innovation, understands consumer behavior that way. We have a whole series that I'll ask Oliver to talk about in our Agile Insights construct. These are all in the spirit of sort of making sure that we have the best intellectual property in the world flowing in, but it's also about being part of this broader ecosystem. So we are working with larger players. We know we're not going to be the only player in that space, and we don't need to own all of the data ecosystem, but we do need to connect to it and pass information back and forth, because the future state of the industry has to be better, faster, cheaper for the client. And that means that we're going to be an ecosystem. We have to work with the other bigger players, and some of them are sharing that vision and working with us right now, and we hope to say more about that as we evolve the industry. And some of them are not yet to the place that they think we all need to be connected. But we are a believer that that is the future for our clients, and that's our guiding light. We don't need to own it. Oliver, I'd love you to talk about how we've rapidly constructed this ecosystem in the case of Agile.
Happy to. Yeah, I think just really building on that, really to be specific, in Agile, I think we have, of course, various instruments and tools that, or also topics that are of client interest, and then there are different partners and data providers behind it. So one big chunk of it is clearly getting insights about the digital performance, right? How are clients doing in terms of, for example, web traffic, in terms of their visibility on search engines, in terms of how consumers talk in social media channels about them, and really all this in a benchmarking way. So I think obviously many clients, for example, would have their own traffic, their own visibility, but using a set of data providers, for example, like SimilarWeb or AdGuru, which are some of our partners there, to really construct a bit of a 360 view of digital performance there, and to benchmark it on a, if you like, apples-to-apples comparison to relevant competitors. I think that's where we, let's say, already have a solution, if you like, within the Agile Insights piece, which is very heavily used and which also is valued by the client. But just by saying, hey, it's just not just the data or just one data point, but it's trying to tell a story about digital performance. We call this within Agile Insights the digital opportunity scan, yeah, where it's just, I think, also showing what could we play as a value add in that role. Just combining 4 or 5 different data providers, looking at the overarching story behind it and what comes out of it in terms of pain points, opportunities to work on, and then to deliver this in a, if you like, also C-suite ready kind of conversation. I think that's a huge part of the value. And another part would be more traditional research approaches, just if you like, boosted. So something like mobile flash surveys, where we just, with certain providers, being able to reach mobile panels, and then maybe, if you like, 500 consumers, ask them 5 questions, and you have the answer in 48 hours. This kind of instruments where we also just use our partner landscape to just deliver that, and then again integrating into the overarching story. I think that's within the Agile space a bit of the flavor how this would work.
So yeah, for other folks who may not be aware, and maybe even for you guys, I was part of an experiment during Super Bowl Sunday where Brain Juicer and Zappy Store were testing all of the ads in real time, and it was very successful. So they, within the scope of the Super Bowl, they had tested every single ad, via survey-based methodology. And I saw some other folks afterwards were taking that and comparing it to social media analytics as well, to try and get a real sense between those 2 data streams of, which ads perform best, et cetera, et cetera. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then the idea, theoretically, if a client comes to you and says, we need to do these types of things, you're going to look at what's the appropriate data source to answer the business question. And if you own it, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. You're going to reach out, find the right partner so that you can address the business issue for the client and fit that within your IP in terms of the how to get to that impact for the client at the bottom line. Right? Is that a very convoluted way of of explaining that in my own mind? So, okay, good.
Absolutely.
So also,
I think the other key is, as much as possible, to figure out what those topics are that could be, and to pre-wire those partnerships. Because again, in a world of better, faster, cheaper, you need to take the interaction cost out. It's not valuable to anybody.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I have to say that I'm personally kind of gratified by this conversation, because for years, this is something that I had predicted would happen, is that more of a strategy consultancy company would come in, not particularly wedded to owning the chain of data collection, but rather to owning the client relationship and that strategic component, and making a formal play within the research space. So thank you for proving me right. I appreciate that. And I think that it's actually absolutely the right way to do things. And I think what I hear from clients more and more is a frustration with being held captive within one supplier because they've standardized on that supplier's, let's say, normative database or their test or whatever the structure may be. And they're looking for more consultative insight, but they're stuck, right? They can't get out of this relationship that they're in. So here you come, actually, saying, yeah, we can help you with this. We can be that consultative component. Brian, I like the raised eyebrow. Yeah, that was good. You're singing my tune, Lenny. We can do that. And going back to the research supplier and saying, look, let's do this together, so we can both meet the client's needs. That's incredibly powerful. So when you think about where you've come and now where you're going, what does the next 2 to 3 years look like? What's the vision, the end state, at least from an interim standpoint, of where you're trying to get to? Whoever wants to answer it.
You want to talk about Insight Solutions specifically, Oliver, and come back to that?
Absolutely. No, happy to. I mean, I personally must say, for us, the Insight Solutions, as you say, we are not. Periscope is a bit older, but Insight Solutions is still, if you like, on the rise. I would even still consider it a bit in startup phase. Yeah. So, and we started in the US. I've now taken over last year to also bring this to Europe and really broaden our geographic reach. And I think that's already something, just being able to deliver this kind of offering, also a bit international. We are a global firm, right? And so at least starting now with the US and Europe, I think that's clearly on our map to say we there have this portfolio of offerings which are also usable here. Because of course, certain Agile Insights providers' data will be regional, right? And will require certain regional tailoring. And so I think we need to have this portfolio and also the ability to serve clients in different countries, different geographies with our offerings. So I think expanding further this portfolio and reach of our offerings is clearly one big topic. Yeah? And then the other one I would see is beyond just, of course, getting always staying on top of the innovative offerings that are out there. I think we are always the ones who, of course, try to then bring it again to the strategic perspective. And I would feel there is a game which we can further even leverage of saying there must be insights transfer, or there are insights transformation needs at our clients in building this kind of muscle, right? And both how do I do this agile research? How do I navigate through this ever-evolving, huge data provider landscape, and what is good and what is less so? And I think navigating them through, and ultimately telling them, hey, how do I then also always translate these agile insights really again back into our business? Because often we see the disconnect between someone in a market insights function finding something interesting, but then really getting it hitting the road and into the ears of the decision makers on top level. I think if you combine that, I see really a big role of Insight Solutions, from just providing these kind of insights to even building this kind of muscle at our clients and really shaping the next generation insights capabilities with them and for them. I think that would be two of my main themes I clearly have in mind.
So we should have a follow-up conversation about that second part, because then you were singing my tune. So we'll we can see if there's some opportunities to partner. So Brian, how about you? So we've got the the insights vision from Oliver. Where do things fit more from a strategic standpoint? Where do you see things going?
I think we want to be able to have this partnership landscape, be able to provide across all sources of insights. So if you think about there's surveys, there's online intelligence or scraping. We think about it as survey, scrape, speak, where you can actually interview or do digital diaries directly with either your own field force or your customers, and scan or social listening dimensions, where there's just an amazing amount of information out there that you can just listen into your customers. They're talking to each other and they're talking about you, and being able to pull that information in a codified way that can then be used to drive decisions. And I think there's both the breadth of that, getting deeper on each of those dimensions of understanding, and then there's the standardization of how to pipe that into ongoing decisions. Those are strategically where we're going, is make sure all of those sources of insights can be tapped, and all of them can flow into decision making.
Okay. So we're coming up to the top of 30 minutes, and I think that's about what I've heard is that you don't talk longer than the butt can sit comfortably. So assuming for our audience that are watching this, what else would you really like us to make sure that the industry as a whole knows about Periscope by McKinsey before we wrap up?
I think one of the key other elements that we bring is this view to what they need to be successful, whether they work with us or they work with others. And it's not just that you have to have your strategy, your people, and process for what decisions you're trying to make, but to really sustain that capability over time. There has to be not just data integration, but data enrichment. And there's a big role for the insights community to continue to provide not just big data, but broad data. Context matters for decision. That needs to be linked to insights that are continuously extracted, preferably through models, but also through automation of primary research. And that needs to feed into decision support systems with workflow, but it's really used every day by common people and you really democratize those insights into action inside of a company. Companies have thousands of people in them, and if the insights are sitting just in the center of excellence and they're not getting to the point of decision, that has no impact. That's the journey that they need to go on, and we're there to help them both architect that journey, and as if they choose, we can support that. We're one of the few people that's actually providing what we call solution as a service capability across all those steps in that chain to impact, and I think that's one of our differentiating roles, is to push the industry to move that way at large and to help our clients get there first.
Okay. Oliver, how about you? Anything that you'd want to make sure that everybody takes away?
Well, I think Brian put it already very nicely. I think what I could only add from my side is I feel so far it feels like an exciting journey for us, because I feel we are onto something here that ultimately really helps our clients, is successful for us, and even for our partner ecosystem something, right? Because I think there's just things coming together that fit together well. I think us in this position to link this whole insights topic to the strategic level, right, and to connecting the dots, and which ultimately, of course, also make sure our partners get these kind of leads and get heard where they should get heard, and using the tools where it really needs. The clients obviously getting this, let's say, also again connecting the dots together to a story which leads to decision making and in building this new muscle. And therefore, I can only say I feel we are just at the beginning here, and really look forward to just further expand on all levels across this exciting offering.
Great. Thank you both so much for your time. This has been one of the better interviews that I've done recently, because the implications are really pretty profound for the industry as a whole. So I hope this is the first of many times that we chat, and everyone, thank you for your time.